Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and I kind of have some bad news to start off the episode. Well, it's not necessarily bad news, but it's kind of sad. It's sad to me because this year, this past season, and this off season, this summer, has it's not been disappointing because we all know that this time has to come up eventually. But for me, it's kind of sad because it's a lot of players that I grew up watching are now retiring. And so it's kind of like sad to see the faces of the NBA beginning to change. And a lot of the players that that my generation grew up watching are starting to retire. They're getting older. We're seeing them kind of because like when Kobe retired, he left on a high note. And if Kobe said that he wanted to come back, I'd be like, yeah, come back, because his last night at the Staples Center was incredible. So, there are some players now that they're just getting older. And so it's that time now where they're deciding to retire, and Tim Duncan has retired, but Kevin Garnett has come to a crossroads now because he is, he's 40 years old, so he's a tad bit on the old side, and he was drafted in 1995. So he's had a really good run in the NBA. Now, we mostly, for me, his most iconic and I think like the prime of his career was when he was with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I loved him with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and rightfully so. He did also play with the Boston Celtics when he was traded in 2007. There he did win a championship there, that first trade, like that first year when he was traded to the Celtics, which, that's great. And it adds to his accolades and it adds to his resume. And then he was also traded over to the Nets, where he was there for a little while, but then he came back to Minnesota in 2015. So, it was kind of like one of those like come back home stories. And he actually, there's talks that the reason why he wanted to come back to the Minnesota Timberwolves was to end his career there, but also to work with Saunders and kind of partner with him to buy the team, buy that franchise and be like owners with that franchise. So that was kind of his thought process going into that deal to come back to Minnesota and to be a Timberwolf again. But unfortunately, Saunders did pass away. And so that did, change everything, because his original plan was not able, his original plan wasn't able to manifest. So he has had to kind of decide what he wants to do instead. And so now Kevin Garnett, of course, is a great player. He comes with a lot of experience. He comes with a lot of basketball knowledge. He comes with just a phenomenal resume, and he's a leader. He's used to being the face of a franchise. He's used to being a leader and putting a team on his back to accomplish things. So he was really a great mentor for Karl Anthony Towns, who, as we know, won Rookie of the Year his first season when he was a rookie, clearly. But he's able to contribute to the team in other ways, even though he's not necessarily the face of the franchise anymore. But the thing is, so he hasn't really responded to anything. So we're assuming that he's going to be retiring this, and he does still have $8 million left on his contract, one more year, so they could perhaps just be, but that's the thing. So we're assuming he's going to retire, but the thing is he hasn't responded back to the organization. So the organization is kind of like waiting for him to kind of decide what is happening, what's going on. So Timberwolves owner Glenn Taylor told the Minneapolis Star-Tribune that he actually hasn't heard from Kevin Garnett in weeks, and that he kind of gave it up to him to make the decision on whether or not he's going to play out this season or not. But like I said, he hasn't heard from Kevin Garnett, so we're jumping to the conclusion that he's going to be retiring and that he's done. But I don't know. Hopefully we'll get one more year out of Kevin Garnett. I don't know. I know that people have there's pros and cons to having a farewell tour, because then that's we know that they're retiring. So we want to see them one last time. And I think it's really good as far as marketing is concerned, because especially with greats like this and people that you grew up watching, you try really, really hard to get those tickets. And so they can make the tickets a lot more expensive because fans want to go. So marketing wise, that is good to kind of have a farewell tour when you have an icon or the face of a franchise, especially the faces of a franchise retiring. But then I also get it when players don't really want that farewell tour type thing. They just kind of want to decide when they are going to retire. So that's kind of, I guess, where Kevin Garnett is at right now. I mean, he's played 21 seasons with the NBA, so he's had a very long career already as it is. So it really wouldn't surprise me. Everybody's kind of leaning on the side that he is going to be retiring this season, that that last season was his last season. So we're going to have to kind of wait to see. He hasn't, as of right now, hasn't confirmed or not confirmed that. So we're going to see what happens with that. And in the meantime, in between time, the Timberwolves have kind of, been starting to slowly prepare for this time and starting to prepare to go in a different route post Kevin Garnett. So, which is fine too, because you gotta do what you gotta do, especially as a franchise. So Karl Anthony Towns, as we know, is doing his thing. He's a really young and up and coming player who has proven his worth to that team and proven his worth and his ability to transition into the NBA and to really make an impact and be the new face of that team. So I'm anxious to see. Like I said, I really hate it when some of my favorite players now are retiring, and it's sucky. I don't want this to happen, but it has to happen. And he's had, like I said, a really good run. So we'll see. I will keep you guys updated on that via Twitter and or the next episodes, depending on how this story develops. And Kevin's taking his sweet time. There's only a week before training camp starts for the Timberwolves. So, he kind of got to decide soon, I guess. I don't know. Maybe he's just waiting to that final hour to decide whether or not, or maybe he's just not going to show up and they're just going to have to take a hint. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But also speaking of retirements and some great players retiring, Tamika Catchings of the Fever, she has decided to end her career as well. This season is her last with the WNBA, and she was also a Tennessee Vol, so she played under the great Pat Summitt, and she's also had a really phenomenal career. So she is another player who is going to be ending a phenomenal career. She played all 14 seasons with the Indiana Fever, so she's another lifer with an organization. She has won a WNBA championship. She's won a finals MVP. She's won a regular season MVP. She has all-star accolades. She's a 10-time WNBA all-star. She also has gold medals from competing in the Olympics and other world games. So she has another incredible resume, another incredible player who has decided that this season is going to be her last. And so I know that that's going to be really sad for a lot of WNBA fans. And it's just one of those things where players they're getting older. I believe she's 37 years old. So she's a little bit on the old side as well, as far as playing is concerned. And so she's going to be retiring, and we kind of knew that this past Olympics was kind of like her last. We had kind of discussed that before in a previous episode, that there are some WNBA all-stars and superstars that are going to be retiring, and that this past Olympics was their last as well. And so it was really cool to make sure that they received another gold medal and to watch that again. So she is also another player in her own arena who is going to be retiring. But we are going to cut it to a quick break. And when we come back, I wanted to discuss the really cool idea that the NBA has now with these global basketball academies, as well as Metta World Peace, and what he's doing with the Lakers. So keep it locked here. You're listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline, and right before the break, I had mentioned that Metta World Peace, Ron Artest, depending on when you were introduced to him, I guess depends on what you know him as, but to me, he will always be Ron Artest. But of course, so Metta World Peace, who has decided that he's agreed with the Lakers that he is going to stay for another year. So he's agreed to a 1-year deal with the Lakers to basically kind of do what Kevin Garnett was doing with the Timberwolves last season, is be more on the leadership end. So not necessarily, because the Lakers are another team that's really young. Their coach is young. Luke Walton is over there, which is fine. It's okay to be young. That's not a problem. But he is kind of there to add some of that leadership role and to kind of lead by example as far as the players are concerned, and to be there as, like I said, just as a leadership role, not necessarily to do, of course, to produce when he does hit the court, but mainly to be there for the leadership side. So he did play overseas in China before coming back to the Lakers and things like that. He is going to be participating in training camp, and it's good because he's 36 years old, so he's kind of pushing the 40-year-old mark as well. But there's still a lot that you can learn from him, and still a lot that he can contribute, especially because of his knowledge and his basketball accolades, and the things that he brings to the table will really be a good thing for this young Laker team. So I'm really excited for that. I'm always excited when players who have good relationships or had a very long stint with a franchise are able to really stick with it and stay. Who knows what? I don't know. I don't know what this will turn into. Like I said, it's only a 1-year deal, so it's for the season. So they're going to kind of, I guess, see how it goes and see what he can contribute and decide from there at the end of this season. So I think it'll be good. It's kind of cool to have him still back with the Lakers. He still perhaps may have a year or 2 left. I don't know. But I just thought it was really cool that when Metta World Peace was interviewed and kind of discussing this 1-year deal that they have decided upon, I just like the fact that he was really professional and encouraging. It was nice to hear his side when it came to Luke Walton, and to hear him really praise the leadership and coach-like qualities that Luke is going to bring to that team. So that's always really good, because, you don't, when you're a teammate and then now your teammate is your coach, that could potentially be kind of like sticky, if guys let their, or just people in general, but if guys let their emotions get into it and they're kind of like hipping, and you just, it can get kind of sticky if they're not professional about things and if egos get in the way. So I think that was really cool that Metta did give Luke his dues, and it seems like he's willing to be under Luke but still contribute leadership wise to the team, which I think is going to be a really nice setup for the Lakers. But also what I wanted to discuss is something that I think is just really, really cool. So before the break, I also mentioned that the NBA is starting, they're in the works with starting these global basketball academies. Now, this past draft, there were a lot of foreign players who were drafted, and there was some people that weren't okay with that. Some people that were just like, why are we looking outside for talent when we have a lot of homebred talent here on the home front? And I get that, because I noticed it too. I was like, oh wow, there's a lot of international guys, or but that's okay, because if they're at the high, if they're able to play at this caliber and ready to play professionally in the NBA, and if these teams are willing to take chances, because, basically when you recruit any guy, whether he's from the US or from overseas, or he came for college, or what have you, you're taking a risk regardless, no matter where they come from, because one, a lot of these guys are young. Like we're not doing that whole out of high school thing, but we're doing that one and done thing. So either way, you're getting some guys that are really, really young. You're getting a lot of guys that are under 20. So either way, you're taking a really big chance, regardless of where they're from. And if a team is willing to take that chance, and if a team is willing to invest in a young guy from overseas and he's proven himself, why not? So, anyways, back to the basketball academies. So this is actually something that I thought was kind of a really cool concept, and I'm really excited to see how it is going to pan out and everything. Now, the NBA has so the vice president of international operations is Brooks Meek, and he's part of the execs that are basically heading this and coordinating this development. So this new program. So basically it is going to be a way, kind of like a feeder program into both educational institutions. So like college basketball programs, as well as the D League, as they're, they want it to develop to kind of be a feeder into the D League for guys that don't go to college. And then also, a feeder, of course, into the NBA. So it's a way to scout out and find talent outside of the US, and to give these young guys top prospects and top elite players from around the world an opportunity to play both at the collegiate level and perhaps at the professional level, whether it's in the NBA, the D League, or just overseas in an international team. So they haven't finalized contracts or locations, but and they haven't officially announced anything yet. Like, it hasn't been officially presented to the media and things like that, but they are in the works to start these academies in Africa, China, India, and Australia. So, but like I said, again, they haven't specifically picked any locations within these countries. Australia is going to be where they are headquartering this basketball program. And basically, like I said, it's going to be a feeder program, but they're going to be focusing on kids 14 to 18 years old, these young guys that are high prospects and potentials to play at the next level. And I kind of wanted to discuss a little bit of the intricacies and what the program is going to entail as far as like partnering up with these countries and things like that. But we have to cut it to a quick break. So when we come back from the break, I want to discuss the basketball academies because I think it's a really cool idea. I really do. And I think that what they're trying to do as far as making the NBA not just a U.S. brand, but a worldwide global brand, and bringing because with the NBA and with basketball comes a lot, and not just finance wise, but a lot of opportunities, like I said, again, for college and to go get your education and things like that, and to travel. So when we come back from the break, I want to discuss a little bit more about the basketball academy because I really, really like it. And I think it's a really cool idea. And I think what they're trying to do is going to be a great thing. So keep it locked here. You are listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline. And right before the break, I was starting to talk about the basketball academies and how cool I think that this concept is. And so basically, it's not just going to be one thing that I really liked about this entire concept, which if you don't know by now, I'm all about the student athlete side first. Like, you're a student first, then you're an athlete, the whole you should get your education, but do what you got to do, because like I totally understand, but whatever. So they are going to partner, so like the NBA, and through this program, the Global Academies program is going to partner with current facilities and current educational institutions, so like the high schools and things like that, in these countries, and kind of help develop them and make sure that those, so I think that that's a really cool thing, because they're not only just worried about the athletic facilities, they're also worried about the institutions that these kids are going to learn from. And I think that that's really cool, because you're taking pride in their education. You're showing them that education is important. And for some of these guys, they believe that basketball is great and they love it and it's their passion, but they also use it as a vehicle for education and to perhaps come to the United States or wherever that it is that they're going to go and get their higher education, and to come back and give back to, because this is an opportunity, this is a very unique opportunity, you know, because in all these, coming to the United States and going to college and playing for whatever level school, whatever division, of course, D1 is always the goal, but whatever institution that you can get into to play basketball for free, to come to the United States and get an education is awesome. Like, it's amazing. We have guys from throughout the world wanting to come to the United States to get their education. So it's really cool that the NBA is going to provide a vehicle and a way for these guys to do that. And so the other cool things that the NBA in this program are going to do is also partner up with the families, as well as the teachers at these facilities. And they're going to provide, part of this program is going to have like strength and conditioning coaches for these guys, so that they can get just physically stronger, that they can prepare for basketball at the next level. They want to start a college scholarship fund for these athletes. So if they are not able to get a basketball scholarship, but that they want to pursue education, and that they want to pursue whether it's education in the traditional sense, or if they want to go to like a vocational school, a job trade school, something like that, that they can have those funds as well. Because as we all know, you can be a very great athlete but not necessarily make the cut to get a scholarship. And so and the NBA is wanting to help them with their secondary level of education, their post high school education, regardless if the professional side of athletics pans out for them. So if they don't make it to the NBA, it's okay. They've had this opportunity to pursue their education as well. So that's what I really, really liked that, because they want to do it for the college education too. They're not just driving these guys and driving these athletes, these kids, whether they have a lot of potential or not, just to focus on the NBA. They're focusing on them as an overall person as well. And so I think that that's actually really, really cool. And again, I said that they wanted to be a feeder as well for the D League, so that they can kind of, they could have that chance to play in the D League if they're not draft eligible, so that they can, they are also going to develop a time where college scouts, like there's like a time period where they can come and do some recruiting and scouting overseas as well. And then Australia, which is kind of cool, because right now they only have those 4 countries: China, India, Africa, and Australia. But Australia is kind of going to be also a place, the academy there. And I'm not quite sure how many academies each country is going to have. I'm sure, I'm assuming that there's going to be more than one academy, one of these institutions per country. But Australia is going to be kind of like the catch-all. So if you are a phenomenal athlete and a major prospect that's not living in Africa, China, or India, or even Australia, you can go to the Australian academy and, prepare yourself there. So I think that that's kind of like, I think it's a really cool concept. I think it provides an opportunity for a lot of these young kids. Again, it's 14 through 18-year-olds. So that really pivotal time in high school, right before they decide where they're going to go for college and things like that, to get opportunities that they may not have had if the NBA wasn't doing this. And again, the NBA is also wanting to foster a good environment for their education too, and to be able to get some training and things that they may not have had, because there's a lot of talent that goes unnoticed because they may not have the resources, or may not have the education, or just whatever it may be, to go to a school that has a really good, basketball program that can bring them over to the United States and whatever, and what have you. So I'm really excited for that. Like I said, it's going to be announced pretty soon. They are in the works with that, and they're finalizing contracts, they're finalizing facilities, they're finalizing locations. So there's going to probably be some more talk about these global academies as we go on throughout the next few weeks. And starting that, it's going to be really cool to see in a couple of years, like the products of the basketball academies, the NBA academies. And I just think it's another way that, Basketball Without Borders is going to be contributing with the global academies as well. It's just another way that basketball is, again, connecting the world and providing opportunities that young athletes may not have had if the NBA didn't step in. And the NBA, and yeah, I get it, it's also kind of one of those things where it's really profitable for the NBA, because they're going to be able to produce and get their hands on some really high caliber athletes and high caliber prospects. There's probably going to be an influx soon of international guys, but hey, if they're able to compete at that level and they're able to contribute to these teams, then why not? And I think it's going to be a great idea. I'm really excited to see what comes of it, excuse me. So that's actually going to do it for this episode of the podcast. And it's, I don't know. I could go on more about the global academies, because I just think it's a really cool concept, and I think it's going to, again, offer opportunities for these athletes. Now, I know that some people are probably wondering what programs are they going to be installing here in the United States. And I get that too, but we have a lot of those, like AAU programs. We have travel and competitive teams. We already have a lot of tournaments and showcase tournaments. We have camps. Almost every single university and high school, if you have a basketball team, has basketball camps throughout the summer. Some even have clinics throughout the year. So it's just another way for the NBA, which was started here in the United States, is growing and expanding and is globalizing the sport. And I think that's a really good thing. And I think it's going to bring in a lot of good talent. I think it's going to give a lot of opportunity to guys that otherwise would not have these opportunities. So I think overall it is a good thing. And yes, the NBA does do a lot here at home. So, you know, if you're kind of like skeptical because this draft had a lot of international players and things like that, I don't know. I guess my only thing is to up your game. I don't know if you're trying to get drafted. I don't know. There's going to be more competition. Yeah. And it's not like there's going to be preference given to these international prospects or anything. It's just what teams are looking for and what these franchises and programs want and what you can deliver. So when it comes down to it, regardless where they're getting these players from, it's not like they're giving special preference, and they're not going to give special preference to homegrown kids, homegrown athletes, just because they're homegrown. You know, it's all about the talent. It's all about the maturity. It's all about, and when it comes to college, it's all about your education in high school too, because you got to be able to get into the school as well. They can want you a lot, but if you're not eligible to play, you're not eligible to play. You're just taking up space and taking up money. So that's what I have to say about that for people who are kind of like, oh, why are we going overseas to get talent when we have a lot of talent here? Which is true. We do have a lot of talent here. I think that the United States, of course, is still the caliber to be. Like, we still set the bar in professional basketball, college basketball, high school basketball. I still believe that our athletes, of course, are the best, but you know, we're upping the competition by bringing in some of these international players. So I think that's just going to be great, because the United States, like, our homegrown kids are just going to get that much better. So, but like I said, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Pauline. You can find me on Twitter at GSMC_basketball. If you like the idea of global academies for basketball, if you don't like the idea, if you're sad about Kevin Garnett, whatever it is that you want to chit chat about, tweet at me at GSMC_basketball. You can listen to this podcast over again. You can listen to any previous or future episodes as well on our network website, which is gsmcpodcast.com. You can also find me on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. And I will talk to you guys soon.